And if you missed a blank to fill in, or you're trying to figure out some things and you're at home watching, we're going to go through this. It's going to just take a few minutes to kind of run through this. And I'm not going to be very long as we look at each of the points. We started, it's been about 5 weeks ago, on the study of angels. And we looked at, first of all, the importance of studying angels. The importance of studying angels. And the importance is this, that we live in two worlds. That's what we need to understand. There's not just a physical world, and most people live in a physical, not understanding there is a spiritual realm as well. So we live in two worlds. There's a physical world, and there is a spiritual world. The information about angels. If you want to know about angels, I know there's speculative things such as movies and books. You can go out and read those or watch a movie or something. You're probably going to get a distorted view about what angels are, though. There are TV shows even that came on, Touched by an Angel, whatever. And you're going to get, again, maybe a distorted view. But even people that give experiences. I've shared with you the experience I've had. I've had several folks share with me the same thing, an experience that happened to them. Never met that person, never saw them again after this happened. But God works in mysterious ways. Hebrews 13 says this, that we need to be careful how we treat strangers, because some of us, he says, have entertained angels unaware. Entertained angels unaware. So there have been times that I've heard stories of people that went through a crisis, and all of a sudden somebody was there to help them and never saw that person again ever. I shared with you the story about me and my wife when we were on Interstate, was it 65? But anyways, we're going to Gaston, Alabama from here. Would that be 65 or whatever? 59. There we go, 59. And we were coming back, and we broke down. And my wife was great with child. I didn't know whether to leave her in the car and walk to the next gas station or what, to try to get someone to come and tow me. And as I was standing there, a guy came up in a military uniform in a Jeep, United States government Jeep, and pulled over and said, I'm not supposed to do this, and I've never done this, but something told me to stop by and talk with you. Do you need some help? It's like, yeah, I sure do. And so he was able to take me and Nancy to the next exit. We were able to have somebody come, and I thanked him, and he took off, never, from that point on. But he was definitely God sent from that standpoint. There was no way I could leave my wife there by herself. It was snowing, matter of fact, at that time. But anyways, we came back, and I got it wasn't even a tow truck. Some guy had a chain on his car, charged me $20 to tow my car on to the next, to the gas station. But anyways, those are speculative answers for that. Whether we saw an angel or not, I know they do appear and can be a part of that. Scriptural aspect of angels. There are 34 books in the Bible that mention angels. How many books in the Bible are there? You guys are great, 66. 66. If you remember 39 in the Old Testament, 3 times 9 is 27. That's how many are in the New Testament. Total 66 books. 108 Old Testament references of angels, 108. And 165 New Testament references to angels. So there's a lot to say about angels in the Bible. We looked at the origin of angels. We understand that they were created by God, just like mankind was. The heavens and the earth, angels were created by God. And they were created directly by God, meaning angels don't produce other angels, all right? So all the angels that were ever created were created by God. I believe they were created at that moment, that time, forever, right there. So the nature of angels. The nature of angels, they are spirit beings, all right? Teaches us that in Hebrews 1:14. Though spirit, they appear, when they do appear, they appear as men. Why is that? Well, next point, they're all masculine. They are always masculine. Every time an angel appears, it's a male. There's no females. And we looked at that there's different genders they could have used in the language to show that they were neutral. There's not. There's a feminine, there's a masculine and a neuter, and it's always a masculine gender. Every angel that appears in the Bible appears as a male. Now, that's important for what we're going to talk about tonight. They do not have to appear as men, though. We'll find out that a cherubim can look different. When John gets a look in heaven and he sees what they're praising God, and he said there are cherubim. What's a cherubim look like? Well, he has the face of an eagle, the face of an ox, the face of a lion, and the face of a man, all right? Seraphim, bright, burning beings. That's what appears in Isaiah chapter 6. So they don't have to appear as men, but they are masculine every time they do appear. B, they're personal beings, meaning they engage in conversation. The angel appeared to Mary, explained to her that she was going to be great with child. It was Gabriel. She had a cousin named Elizabeth. That same angel appeared to her and let her know that she was going to have a child too, John the Baptist. Not only do they engage in conversation, they are morally responsible. They're morally responsible for their action, for what they do. Point number 4, the abode of angels. Where do angels live? The holy or good angels live in heaven. The unholy or evil angels live in heavenly high places and on earth. And then C, some angels, wicked angels, are bound in hell. And it's a place called Tartarus. It's found in 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4. It only occurs one time in the Bible, Tartarus. And so there are some angels that are bound there. We're going to explain tonight why we believe they are bound there. In our next lesson, we saw that the number of angels, according to Hebrews 12:22, they're innumerable. They're innumerable. Matthew 26 says there's 12 legions of angels that could have come. 60,000, that's what 12 legion is, 60,000 angels. Matthew 5:11 says there's 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands. That's a lot. We also saw that there's an Old Testament passage, Deuteronomy 32, and the Septuagint and a couple other translations trying to kind of translate this as though there's one for every person. There's an angel for every person that's ever going to be born. Some actually say there's one for every star. That would be billions and billions, right? That's how many they say the stars are. And so that's the number of angels. There are a lot of them. The rank of angels. We saw that there are archangels. And let me go back. According to the Bible, there's an archangel, singular. Now, I know the Jewish tradition, they have more than one. They have 7 of them, but there's only one that the Bible records, and it's Michael, the archangel. Matter of fact, he's also called a chief prince. In Daniel chapter 10, verse 13, he appears, and he's a chief prince. There are principalities and powers. Angels are referred to as that, principalities and powers. Matter of fact, Paul said that's who our battle was against. Principalities and powers in high places, the demons that have fallen. There are special kinds of angels. There are the elect angels. There are the cherubim. They're found in Genesis 3. That's what God placed at the opening to the Garden of Eden to keep Adam and Eve out, or anybody out. It appears in Ezekiel 28, talks about Satan being the anointed cherub. That was what he was. He was a cherub. And then we see the seraphim. That's in Isaiah chapter 6. You have the cherubim and seraphim that are around the throne. That's a bright burning being. That's what that means, a seraphim, a bright burning being. Special titles for angels. Here's some titles. Sons of God, according to Job chapter 1, verse 6. Also, Job chapter 2, verse 1 says the same thing. Says that Satan appeared before the Lord and the sons of God came with him. They're called stars, Revelation 12:4. When Satan fell, it said that the dragon took a third of the stars of heaven and pulled them with him. So they're called stars. They're called ministering spirits, according to Hebrews 1:14. One of them is called Michael, and we saw he's an archangel. His job is watching over Israel. Watching over Israel. Then there's Gabriel. His job is revealing new truth. When he appeared to Mary, let her know, you're going to bear the Messiah. Elizabeth, you're going to bear a son who'll be a forerunner. Then there is Lucifer. Lucifer. You could translate that as day star. He's our adversary. Those are the special titles of angels. Now let's look at the positions of angels to men. They are higher than man, according to Hebrews 2. They're higher than man, but they serve man. They're created to serve. They serve man. Men will judge angels, according to 1 Corinthians 6, verse 3. And angels are not to be worshiped. What's kind of interesting is in the book of Revelation, John gets so caught up with this angel that's showing him all of heaven. And what's he do? Especially in chapter 19, he falls down to worship. And the angel goes, what are you doing? Get up. Get up. And he does it again later on in the passage. But John's just overwhelmed. He's an older guy. He's been through a lot. If you've been boiled in oil, okay, I can understand being a little discombobulated or whatever. So, but John had some struggles right there. I love it that he writes the book of Revelation because he's the only disciple that went to the cross with Jesus. He saw Jesus in his full humility. You know what Revelation is? It's Jesus in his full glory. That's what it is. So the person who saw Jesus in his full, he saw him spit on Jesus. He saw them mock him, pierce him, crucify him, people blaspheme. Even the other guys who were being crucified were blaspheming him. And he saw all that. And even though John saw all that, the Holy Spirit of God let him write the book of Revelation and Jesus in his full glory. But they're not to be worshiped. The ability and power of angels. First of all, they're very powerful, very strong. There's one in the Old Testament that defeated literally thousands, over 100,000 troops that came in. Time and time again, you see the ability, you see the power of angels. They're very intelligent. First of all, they're intelligent because they've lived for a long time, right? They've been there from the very get-go, from the very beginning of creation. They were there, and so they have gained knowledge and things like that. They're very inquisitive. We've seen that in the book of 1 Corinthians, that they're inquisitive. It says the same thing in Peter. Peter says that angels desire to look in. They look, every time we sing Amazing Grace, they don't get it. What is grace? They just don't quite understand that. But they're very inquisitive, and so, but they're intelligent. And not only that, they're very swift. They're very swift. Here's a kind of a thought. I don't know, have you ever thought where like heaven it really is? You know, when I was a kid, heaven was up there. Where was hell? Somewhere down there. It's in the core of the earth or something like that. And people would use things like that. I don't know. Sometimes I think we've realized that all the dimensions that we live in, maybe it's in another dimension that you just step right through or whatever. I know that may not be because, I think it was Michael that came to help Daniel out, and he was struggling, but he was fighting against Satan as he was coming to rescue and to talk with Daniel. So, but anyways, I'm not quite sure. I know that God has a prepared place for prepared people, and I know he has created hell, and it was never meant for mankind, ever. Hell was prepared for the devil and his angels. That's where hell was prepared. So anyways, we see that. Now let's talk about the angels, the ministry of angels. Here's some of their ministries real quick. They serve. They help answer prayer. Remember when Peter was in jail? Who was it came? It was an angel that came and set him free. They're instrumental in winning people to Christ. When Philip was headed out into the desert, there was an Ethiopian there. And it was the angel that got him to go out and go that way. They encourage saints in times of danger. They deliver saints from danger. You remember Sodom and Gomorrah? You had those two angels that appeared for Lot and his family. That reminds me of a good story about, they were telling the story about Lot. You know, she's supposed to turn back and look, and what happened when she turned around and looked? Yeah, turned into a pillar of salt. Some little kid was listening to this in junior church. He waved his hand. Said, "Yeah, Johnny?" He said, "That's nothing. My mom was driving the other day, and she turned her head and turned into a telephone pole. How about that?" So I thought that was funny. Yeah. All right. Some of the duties regard to souls and bodies of dead saints. When Lazarus died, what happened? Who came and gathered him? The angels did. Angels came and gathered him. When Moses died, what happened? It wasn't just any angel. Who was it? It was Michael, the archangel, who had to contend with Satan for the body of Moses. And so they have something to do with the body of saints that die. And they look after children. They look after children, according to Matthew 18:10. The presence of angels. First of all, they can be seen physically. The ones that appear physically. When Lot was there, as a matter of fact, the whole city of Sodom saw the men show up, and they were angels. They can appear. And sometimes you can't see them, but they can be seen spiritually. The story of Elisha and his helper, and they're out there, and the helper's freaking out because they're all going to die because this army has come in to take them. And Elijah says, "You have nothing to worry about." He said, "What are you talking about, man? We are City ducks right here, man. This is it. He said, God, open his eyes. He opened his eyes, and there were more behind there. He could see the angels behind there that were there to protect them and look after them. So they can be seen physically and they can be seen spiritually. The sin among angels. Those who fell have fallen forever. They were all created at one time. It wasn't over a time period, but they were I believe they were created in the very beginning. But the ones who fell have fallen forever. Why? Because there's no redemption for angels. None. Hebrews talks about that. He didn't become an angel, he became a man. So mankind can be redeemed, but angels cannot. There's no remedy for the fall of angels. So the ones that fell forever. Those who did not fall were confirmed forever. Those are called the elect angels in 1 Timothy 5:21. Terminology. We're going to talk about demons now. We'll go from angels to demons. Talking about demons, biblical terminology, that's what they're called, demons. If you have a King James version, they're called devils. Every time you see the word devils, plural, it's the same word for demons, all right? It's demons. They're called familiar spirits. They're called unclean spirits. They're called foul spirits. Do you see the S on the end too? That's important there as well. Angels, they're called angels. They're called the sons of God, and they're called stars. Those are all terms that demons are called throughout Scripture. The origin of demons. When Satan fell, he took a third of the angels with him, according to Revelation 12:4. Fallen angels are demons. Fallen angels are demons. The devil and his angels, the demons, are defeated in Revelation chapter 12. It talks about that. Now, the intelligence of demons. Here we go. We talked about the intelligence of angels. Here's the intelligence of demons. They know that Jesus is God. How about that? They know that Jesus is God. And they know about their ultimate doom. They know they're headed for the lake of fire. Okay? So they know their ultimate doom. When Jesus showed up, they would, are you here to judge us? Is it already judgment and stuff? And finally they talked to Jesus when they had possessed that guy. They didn't even have a name. When he asked his name, they gave him a number. We're legion, okay? And we are many. And what did Jesus do? He cast the demons out into the pigs. And what happened? The pigs ran off the mountain and stuff. So, but anyways, they know their ultimate doom. The abode of demons, and that's where we started last week. The abode of demons. Some demons are free to roam the earth and the heavenlies. That's what's called spiritual warfare that's going on. We live in America. You go to third world countries and things like that. You hear about this stuff a lot of times that's out there. And a lot of darkness that's in our world. And so they are free to roam the earth and the heavenlies. Some demons are bound in hell, Tartarus. And we started talking about this last week. They're bound because of a sin that was committed in the days of Noah. Let me read for you 2 Peter chapter 2. I had it in there last week, but listen to what it says in 2 Peter 2. Verse 4, it says, "For if God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to hell." Now, not all the demons are in hell. Just there's some angels in hell. So what happened? "And delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved for judgment, and did not spare the ancient world, but saved Noah, one of 8 people, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood of the world of the ungodly." It was the same time that God would destroy the entire world and start from scratch. So what's going on there? Something so bad that God would destroy the entire world and start with just Noah and his family and rebuild the earth and repopulate it once again. Well, there's 2 views that are out there. What was the sin that the angels committed? There are 2 views. Well, first of all, the first view doesn't involve angels whatsoever. They're bound in because of a sin that was committed during the days of Noah. Here's the first view. The sons of God. Oh, matter of fact, turn back to Genesis 6. I want you to all turn there if you have your Bible. Genesis 6. I want you to see this. In Genesis 6, it says this in verse 1. "Now it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, for he indeed is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came to the daughters of men, and they bore children to them, those were mighty men of old, men of renown." Well, in here, he talks about the sons of God. And the question is this: who are the sons of God? Now, we've already said that when we address a title of angels, according to Job chapter 1, verse 6, and this is the only other time it occurs, in Job chapter 2, verse 1, Satan appears before the throne of God with the sons of God. Sons of God. But the question is this, who are these? And here's the two views, all right? First view is this. The sons of God are a godly line. They're believers. Those are all believers. They're sons of God. They're believers. It's a godly line. And here's the sin. Ready? Believers marrying unbelievers. 2 Corinthians 6 says this, be not unequally yoked together with what? With unbelievers. That's a command. That's not a suggestion, all right? Don't be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. If you're a Christian, you ought not to marry an unbeliever. And I shared with you last week, the reason you marry another believer is your commitment is the same. And so it's like that pyramid I was talking about, philos. That's what philos is. It's a pyramid. And the closer you get to the apex of the triangle, the base gets smaller and smaller and smaller. What are the things that you hold on to? And if you have philos and you marry another believer, at the very top, you're going to grow closer together because of your relationship with God. But if you marry an unbeliever, instead of growing this way, you're going to grow this way. This way. So Paul's not some bigot or something like that. He's just trying to tell you how to have a successful marriage. So, but back then, they said the sin was believers married unbelievers. Okay? I want you to notice what it says in verse 4. There were giants on the earth in those days, also afterwards, when the sons of God came to the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Listen to what it says now. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. There's something different about their kids. So basically, it's believers marrying unbelievers, and when they did, their kids were different. Well, first of all, let's look at this. Here's some problems real quick. Here's the problems. Believers still marry unbelievers today, don't they? Do they not? Yeah, they do. Believers marry unbelievers today. I've actually heard statements like this, counseling people. Brother Gary, I'm going to change him. It's not going to happen, okay? What happens is you're going to have a miserable life, basically. He's not going to go to church with you. He's not going to do that. I can change him. I'm telling you, I can do that. Well, do it before you get married. How about that? Let's see a change in his life. Well, that happens. So believers still marry unbelievers today. Their children, are their children different? If you know somebody that's an unbeliever and they marry a believer, right? Either or. Say the man is a believer, but his wife isn't. All right? Or vice versa. Are their children, is there something special about their children? They're the geniuses that are out there. In football, they're the ones that always score the touchdown. And this is you can't tell the difference between two believers who have kids, two unbelievers who have kids, and a believer and an unbeliever who have kids. There's no difference. But here it says there's something different about their kids. All right? So believers still marry unbelievers. Their children are no different. And by the way, if you believe that, do you notice it says the sons of God were all men, the daughters of men, okay? They chose daughters of men. Men began to have daughters, and they chose for them wives. So in essence, what you'd say is that all boys are good and all girls are bad. Everybody's looking at me like, yeah, I didn't say that. I'm just saying that's how you have to interpret that. If you're the sons of God, right, the daughters of men. And by the way, there are no daughters of God and sons of men. It's the sons of God and their daughters of men right there. Well, they come together. There's no difference. Okay, let's look at the other view. Sons of God. I believe they're angels. I believe they're angels. It says so in Job 1:6. It says it also in Job 2, verse 1. Remember we said angels are always what gender? They're always men, masculine. That's why they're called sons of God. They're created directly by God. They're the sons of God. It is angels with women. Angels with women. It says their children in verse 4, they were mighty men. Let me give you a definition of what that means. The word for mighty men, it's the word for strong, champion, or mightiest. Then it says, which were of old. The statement there for old, it's a word that's used in some of the covenants when they talk about an eternal covenant, one that never dies. He says they were of old. It's the Hebrew word olam, and it means everlasting, forever, or immortal. And it says they were men of renown. It means they were famous, they were legends. Everybody's heard about them. That's where we left off last week. If you flip your page over, I want to go to Bill Brandenburg's notes from here. Things that make you say, Things that make you say, What I'm going to do right now, let me just give you a heads up. For the next couple weeks, we're going to look at this, and we're going to use extra biblical things. We're going to use the Bible, talk about that, how it came, what it says, all right? But I want to show you some things outside the Bible that just because it's not in the Bible doesn't mean it's not true either, all right? Y'all follow me on that? It's just not inspired. It's not God's word. It's different, all right? And there's some extra biblical writing, some extra things that are out there that I want to look at. And I'm going to look at a little folklore tonight and kind of show you some things that were happening. I said last week that this happened during the flood. And by the way, there are flood stories in every culture around the world. Ours is, when you look at Noah and the ark, there's other ones too. Gilgamesh, all right? Lost city of Atlantis. They have all these different flood stories, no matter whether it's Greek, Babylonian, Judeo-Christian, what we believe in things. There's all kinds of flood stories that are around the world. Let's take a look at some of the things that are out there with folklore and mythology. One of the stories is the lost city of Atlantis. Anybody ever heard of that? They're still looking for it, right? Why? Because it's all what? It's all got gold in it, right? I think everything's built with gold and stuff. So the lost city of Atlantis. It was written by Plato. He was the one that described it. He said it was handed down to him, and he wrote it down and passed it along. And Plato wrote this in 400 BC, the lost city of Atlantis. In the lost city of Atlantis, we're introduced to a character. His name is Poseidon. Anybody ever heard of Poseidon before? Okay, he's the god of what? Yeah, the god of the water, right? God of the water. He has a brother. His name is not Sue, boy named Sue. No, boy named Zeus, right? He has a brother named Zeus. But Poseidon marries a mortal named, I can't even pronounce her name, Cleito. Now, this is from the lost city of Atlantis, Plato's writing. He sets his wife and children in a place called Atlantis. As I understand, it's an island. He has 5 sets of twin boys. Boy, that's a blessing, huh? The oldest was Atlas, for whom the land Atlantis and the sea Atlantic were named after. And by the way, Atlas was thought to be a mighty man, a man of renown. Now remember, sons of God with the daughters of men, they produce an offspring that's kind of unique. They're strong, they're mighty. There's legends about these guys, all right? Number 4, because of the corruptness of the people, this land and all the inhabitants are destroyed by a flood sent by the gods. That's in Plato's writing. The lost city of Atlantis. And Plato says this happened around 9,000 BC. That's surprising. No billions and billions of years. Today they'd look at that and laugh. 9,000 years, yeah. He's closer than they are today, a lot of the scientists and things that think of billions and billions of years. So this happened in 9,000 BC. Now to me, that's an example. I believe that maybe Poseidon, as a matter of fact, we're going to talk about another one here, his brother Zeus, which I believe is not only a fallen angel, I believe he's in Tartarus, and maybe Poseidon is as well. Let's look at the Greek god Zeus as the sons of God. An angel who fell, who became a demon, who was free to roam the earth, and maybe he took a mortal woman as his wife, produced an offspring. Everybody know who Zeus's son is? Anybody want to take a guess? Yeah, Hercules. Hercules. We'll get to that in just a second. Zeus is said to have had a child with a mortal woman. Number one. Number two, the child's name was, there it is, Hercules. Was Hercules known as a mighty man? Yeah, in mythology, yeah, he's a mighty man. He was even said to be immortal. Immortal. Zeus is a god that the Greeks and the Romans worshipped. Now, when I say the Romans didn't call him Zeus, they called him Jupiter. And it's funny because in the King James Version, when you go to the book of Acts, Acts 14, you're going to see, Jupiter and Mercury show up. And basically, it's Paul and Barnabas. I'd be flattered if someone called me Mercury or whatever like that. But it's Paul and Silas. But in Greek, it's Zeus and Hermes. It's Zeus and Hermes. That's a question I asked last week. Does Zeus appear in the Bible? Yeah, he's in Acts chapter 14. He's also in Acts chapter 9. Matter of fact, Acts chapter 14, it says this. And Barnabas, they called Zeus. I've been upset if I was Paul. I want to be the whatever and stuff, but anyways. And Paul Hermes, because he was the chief speaker, then the priest of Zeus, whose temple was in front of their city. And he describes what's going on here. You're getting ready to turn that city upside down. So Zeus is a god that the Greeks and the Romans worship. Now, here's what's fascinating. Have you ever heard, you've heard of the statement, the abomination of desolation? Who's heard of that statement before? It's right out of the book of Daniel, the abomination of desolation. Jesus talks about it, the abomination of desolation. And the book of Daniel talks about that was going to happen. There's going to be an abomination of desolation. It's going to happen. And it did happen. It's referred to in Daniel chapter 11. But there was a guy named Antiochus Epiphanes. He's one of the last leaders of the Greek army. And his dad was a king. I'm not sure if he was a king as well. But Antiochus Epiphanes, and by the way, his name Epiphanes means the glorious one. That's what he named himself, the glorious one. He was kind of like trying to conquer the world, all right? Went down to Egypt, didn't get it all of it, but made some plans to take over. Matter of fact, he set his eyes on Jerusalem and came up there. And one of the things he did was he attacked Jerusalem, and he actually took the temple. And he had began slaughtering the priest. Basically, he gave them a deal. They could eat a barbecue dinner or die. And they would rather die. This is like around 165 BC when this is happening. No, 168 BC. And all this is happening. It happens in December, I think it's December the 14th, 168 BC. But this is all happening then. And after he slaughters the priest, he slaughters and sacrifices a pig upon the altar. He puts a statue of Zeus right there in the front. I think I have the passage. I'm not sure if I have it. Yeah, there it is, 2 Maccabees. Now, let me say this. If you have friends that are Catholic, this is in their Bible, okay? It's called the Apocrypha. We don't recognize the Apocrypha as inspired by God, all right? Now, is it a history lesson? Yeah. Did it happen? Yeah, I think just about everybody agrees that this has happened. It's truth in here. It's just not the inspired, inerrant Word of God. Do you understand the difference right there? Can something be true that's not in the Bible? Yeah, it can still be true. Absolutely, in things. This is the Maccabean revolt, all right? Look at what it says. It says, not long after this, the king sent an Athenian senator to compel the Jews to forsake the laws of their ancestors and no longer to live by the laws of God, also to pollute the temple in Jerusalem and to call it the temple of Olympian Zeus, and to call the one in Gerizim the temple of Zeus, the friend of strangers, as did the people who lived in that place. Harsh and utterly grievous was the onslaught of evil, for the temple was filled with debauchery and revelings by the Gentiles, who dallied with prostitutes and had intercourse with women within the sacred precincts, and besides brought in things for sacrifice that were unfit. The altar was covered with abominable offerings that were forbidden by the laws. That's what Antiochus Epiphanes did to the temple there in Jerusalem. It was like a desecration of it, the abomination of desolation. By the way, Antiochus Epiphanes is a kind of a forerunner. He's a type of what the Antichrist is going to be like when he shows up. He hates Jewish people. He's going after them. By the way, it's kind of crazy in the world in which we live today, isn't it? There's a lot of people that hate the Jewish people. Why? Because they're Jewish? Somebody said, I think it was Karl Barth said in one of his books, said that one of the best proofs of the existence of God is that the Jewish people still exist. Every time somebody's come to power, world power, whether it's Stalin or Hitler or Herod or Pharaoh, what do they do? The first thing they do is try to exterminate the Jewish people. And because they live, that's an example of that. But here in Jerusalem, they tried to overthrow the city right there. His name was Antiochus Epiphanes, and that was in 168 BC, December the 14th. Is there another holiday we celebrate around that time? What do we call it? Christmas? Yeah, that's it. Good thing. Christmas. Anybody been to Ace Hardware lately? Got all the Christmas stuff out already? Christmas. It just so happened in 165, 3 years later, BC, December the 14th, there was a guy named Judas. That was when Judas was a good name. The other Jews hadn't showed up yet. And they called him Maccabees, the hammer. He was a very brave man. Matter of fact, him and his brothers went back in and they retook the temple. They had them run the army, chased them out of town, got rid of them and stuff. And one of the things they did was they rededicated the temple. They had oil that was supposed to be used by a priest. It would take many days to make, but they only had so much and it was only going to last a very short time. And it lasted, I think it was 8 days, it lasted. That's why the menorahs are there. You know what holiday they celebrate, the Jewish people? Yeah, it's called Hanukkah. It means to dedicate, to rededicate the temple. And that's what they did. Our Jewish friends, at the same time we're getting ready to celebrate Christmas, they're celebrating Hanukkah. They never forgot about that holiday, what those guys did, the Maccabean brothers. Maybe that's why they put them in the Bible there or whatever in between the apocryphal books that are there. But there's the story of it right there. They set up a statue to who? A statue of who? Zeus. Zeus. Well, let's follow up with that. Zeus is the idol that Antiochus Epiphanes set up in the temple and committed the abomination of desolation. By the way, it's found in Daniel 11:31. He talks about that. 1 Corinthians 10:19 and 20. Listen to what they say there, the passage. It says, what am I saying then? That an idol is anything, or what is offered to idols is anything? Rather that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to what? Demons. And not to God. And I do not want you to have fellowship with demons. When you worship an idol, you know what you're worshiping? You're worshiping a demon. And they were worshiping idols, all right? He says in 1 Corinthians 10, when you worship an idol, you're worshiping a demon. This is what he says in Deuteronomy 32:17. Deuteronomy 32, they sacrificed to demons, not to God. To gods they did not know. To new gods, new arrivals that your fathers did not fear. So anytime you worship an idol, you're worshiping what? You're worshiping demons. And that's what they were doing in the Old Testament, and they were doing the same thing in the New Testament. When you worship an idol, you're worshiping a demon. Here's my take, and this is what I'm going to prove even more over the next couple weeks. It's going to be very interesting. We're going to be looking at a book that a guy named Enoch wrote. Anybody ever heard of him? I don't think he really wrote it, but it's interesting. Jude quotes his book in his inspired, inerrant statement in the book of Jude. It's just one chapter long. It's one of those postcards in the New Testament, all right? It's a very small writing, but Jude quotes from Enoch in there, all right? Let me say this. I think Zeus is probably a fallen angel. Hear that? I'm not going to repeat it again. Here we go. And now, right when I said that, it goes out. Zeus is probably a demon that is bound in Tartarus. Let me give you my take on this. And again, this is a Garyism, all right? Where would they hear where would Hercules come from and Atlas and stories like that? Well, there were how many people that escaped the flood? Noah and how many people? There were basically 8 people. Noah and his family and his kids. They had some stories to tell, I bet, before the flood happened. Now think about it. Because they're living during this time. These boys are out there, and for the next 100 years, they're experiencing this. They're building an ark. And they hear all these stories. I think those stories are passed down. You ever been to one of those things where you tell somebody a secret, and they're supposed to tell somebody, and it goes all the way down the line, and then they say, okay, at the very end you find out, and it's like, well, it wasn't quite like that. It was this is what we said. I think this is what happens here. I really believe I believe it was demonic beings having a relationship with women, producing an offspring that would be unredeemable. And God said, enough is enough, and he stopped it. Right there, boom, no more. He destroyed the entire world because of this sin. All right? And I believe those stories, whether it was Atlas or wherever you go, wherever they went. And by the way, there's another event that happened after they came off the ark. God told them to spread out and do what? Multiply. Sounds like the Stooges, don't they? Spread out. Whoop, whoop, whoop. All right. But he said to spread out and multiply, fill the earth. What did they say? You know what? I think we got a better plan than God. Let's just stay here in Babylon. And let's hang out here, right? Let's build this great, let's build a ladder to heaven. And what did God do? He confounded their languages. And then what did they do? What did they do? What did they do, right? They took stories that they'd heard. Now, remember, they didn't have a Bible right then. They had stories that they'd heard, things, and they went to the 4 corners of the earth and began sharing those stories in their language. That's why you'll see it's Zeus to the Greeks and it's Jupiter to the Romans, a different language and things. But these stories are passed on. But they all have this in common. There's a flood that happens. The gods are mad, all right? And someone's going to pay for this. And this is what happens. Well, and I share with you one other thing I want to share with you. Remember where it says there were giants in the land in those days? And afterwards also? All right? And I shared with you last week, do you remember what I said that word is? In the Greek, which is a Septuagint version of the Old Testament, it's the word gigantos, which is giants, all right? But that's not inspired. The Old Testament, it was written in Hebrew, and the word that's used there is the word that can mean giant or it can mean a fallen one. A fallen one, yeah. What happened to the angels in heaven? They what? They were fallen, and they fell forever, a third of them. And for some reason, these angels even decided to have relationship. And you know what? We're going to have relationship. Now, some questions that we need to answer over the next couple weeks, and we're going to answer these. I thought the demons were like the angels in heaven or whatever like that, They neither marry nor given in marriage. Well, how can they do this? Angels can't reproduce, right? You said at the very beginning. I didn't say that. I just said they don't. They haven't done that. They don't produce new angels that way. And by the way, they're only, what's the gender of angels? Males. So, what's going on here? Well, we're going to talk about some of that. We'll talk about some of the troubles and some things that happen. But I want you to remember this. Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, so also will it be in the coming of the Son of Man. You want to know what's going to be like in the end time events? Whatever was happening in Noah's day that was so bad that God destroyed the entire world and started with scratch. He said that's what's going to happen in the end times. Now, I'm not quite sure. I have theories. I have views. And when I do the book of Revelation, anybody did their study with me on Revelation? A couple of you, did you do Revelation 17? Remember talking about that? Now, I know not everybody agrees with me, all right? And but it's just me speculating on some things. It's my understanding of the Word of God. By the way, I'm always learning. I talked with someone the other day that I was talking about that there are views that I'd held before that I've changed my mind. By the way, I've had like 5 people I thought were the Antichrist in my lifetime. At one time, it was definitely this, right? Then I had kids. It was Barney the dinosaur, for definitely right there. And then different times in my life, it's like, okay, it's this one. And so I want us to always have an open mind when it comes to that. The study to show ourselves approved to dig in. But friends, I can tell you this, I'm convinced we are living in perilous times and last day stuff, what's going on in the world in which we live today. So anyways, thank you for coming tonight. I'm going to see you next week, and we're going to kind of look at we're going to look at a lot of real old writings and what they have to say about this passage right here in Genesis 6. What do they say about it? What are our church fathers? You know who church fathers are? Guys who were after the apostles, guys who came along later on, who helped meet together. They were the ones who were part of canonizing the Bible and laying it out. But we're going to talk about some church fathers and what they believed and what they said about the exact same passage that we've been looking at tonight. So, hey, thank you.